with the whole story that Stuki, he gave him 40s. He offered him 40 zuz for the 4 brachas of Berkas Hamazon. So it's saying it's not the, you don't pay for the mitzvah, you pay for the loss of the bracha.
Yeah, that was okay, but nevertheless, that bracha, the bracha has a value. Is it only? Are we? In other words, you're saying that now there's no, there really is no value to the mitzvah.
It's
only a din and bracha.
According to the Maskana of the Gemara had a question.
Right.
If it was a schar mitzvah or schar bracha, it says a schar bracha.
Maybe that's the answer. That there is actually for the mitzvah itself doesn't have. You can't sue someone for the mitzvah.
But it's for the bracha that you lost.
It's only the bracha. Only the bracha has the value.
It only has value because it's a mitzvah.
That's a good answer.
It may answer the question.
Because if somebody comes along, it says if somebody comes along and performs your bris before you're planning to do the bris, and someone comes along and slices ahead, and you say amen, you've lost your right to sue because you got the benefit because you said amen. So it is the bracha. That's right. He's right.
Right. Very good.
All right.
It's like,
I'll
take it.
I'll take it. No, it's him. He's
write it in. So, if it comes from an idol, it's considered burnt. It has no shear. So therefore you're not yotzer with the shofar. And the same with the lulav.
What does it mean that it doesn't have a share?
It means it's not considered the right size.
What I understood from it, I don't know. It's invisible. It doesn't exist.
Right.
It's an unbelievable thing.
I'm wondering why in this whole discussion it just didn't
this
bring
item
down
of
like the
doesn't
Rambam
exist.
that if Goyim make a mountain into a
it says
Vodazora,
it uses the word
that mountain.
Right.
This was
no
if Chas
change.
V'Shalom the
It's
item
dirt.
is for Avodah
Somebody built
the fact
on top
that it
of
wasn't
near
burnt.
Anadarkos. It's dirt.
It's already
Doesn't
considered
change.
burnt.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
If it was ashes he was talking about, it would be one thing. He's talking about the dirt.
That's fine.
That was the first
Physically, it's there.
answer.
It has just no value.
First answer
It's
is
saying that it doesn't exist. It doesn't
Second
have a
answer
shear.
is
It's not.
actually
It has no
the ashes
space.
itself.
Yeah,
It says
so
here,
it's what
it doesn't have a space. It doesn't have an existence.
No, that's not what it's saying.
It's saying that it's as if it's burnt and it's not. It doesn't have the right
It
size.
says that it lost its physical significance.
Right.
There is no physical significance to it.
So
I thought we were going here is that because the lulav and the shofar need a measurement, then avodah zarah has value, and therefore you can't use avodah zarah. But it's opposed to the sawdust. There's no measurement of how much sawdust you have to throw. Any amount you throw is fine.
yeah, we're not switching back to the value though. We're saying that mitzvahs don't give us any benefit. Mitzvahs are for Hashem. So even if you blow a shofar that's from avodah zarah, it's not considered hana.
Why not?
So why can't you blow from the shofar of avodah zarah? Because the shofar itself isn't the right size. Why can't you use a lulav from avodah zarah? Because the lulav isn't the right size. Because it's considered burnt. It's not.
What
it's
if
not
it was the right size?
No, it's the right.
It can't. Its physical
it's not
significance
considered
is
the
not
right
there
size
anymore.
because it doesn't have. It doesn't have. It's considered burnt.
But
So
the
it doesn't have a
still
shear.
fine that you used it.
No,
We said before it is.
that was before we knew the brisa. Then we quoted a brisa that says you're not yaitza. You're not yaitza. So, but mitzvah slavli hanasna, you should be yaitza. You're not getting any benefit from those mitzvahs. We say no, it doesn't have the right size. That's the answer. But hacha
Let's see what
by
it says
kisei
about
adam kol mademichtas mali lekisei. So what? You don't have a size. The smaller it gets, the better it is for kisei adam.
So you could use a
It's
shear
not
or not.
invisible.
See,
You
this
can
It's not
use a shear or
invisible.
not.
It's just there's no.
Yeah.
All we need is the dirt. It doesn't need to have a size.
regarding an error. This is the logic.
How do you like the? It's the same.
The coolest thing is like when you said Rashi says somewhere else, you touch it, and all of a sudden it brings out from the other Gemara a pop-up box quoting the Rashi. Same
This is
thing
a
with
paid
Chullin.
advertisement.
It's just
And I approve.
the hyperlinks is amazing.
Uh-huh.
And you only get the hyperlinks if you get the entire set.
Right.
So, and now I'm committed, considering the price. I'm committed to learn this for 7 years.
Tell everybody how much is the entire set?
Yes. The retail price from what's this called, Art Scroll, is $1,500. The price at Eichler's is $999. However, if you order now, it's $874.99 shipping free.
And you'll throw in what?
And it includes, like, if you mess
Even the
up,
iPad.
it includes the brand new iPad. And not only that, it's not necessarily brand new. I mean, it's unused.
It's a kosher iPad.
But no, I mean, it's you could still put in Netflix and stuff.
How about Shabbos?
Wait a sec. Wait, Shabbos you can't use it. No. So wait. However, it's still, you can use it as an iPad for everything else. I mean, keep it kosher.
In the Rambam, and this is the logic that it uses. Why you can use Avodah Zarah to make an Erev, because there's no measurement.
Make an Erev has a string?
Right. There's no measurement to how big the string has to be or how thick the string has to be.
Oh, very good.
Since there's no measurement, that's why you can use Avodah Zarah. That's what I thought we were going over here.
Very nice. Okay, Hajjalach Kisei
That was
Adam,
good.
Bli Neder. We return to this chapter. We start a new chapter.
Connecting between the two poles, the material
Okay.
used can be out of
Excuse me. Before you start, can you just remind me the difference? Actually, remind Dr.
Doctor, you're wasting time.
Dr.
Please.
Gershwin the difference between Treifa and the Vela.
Yeah.
I only remember that it's for Tuma, but was there
that's
more
it.
to it?
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
for some. But how does it become a treifa? Only if it was slaughtered
During
properly.
con-
It was slaughtered properly, but there's some defect in the animal
Like it's
that
not
makes it a
glatt
treifa.
or whatever.
And the vela is when it wasn't slaughtered properly, and the difference is the impurity that it will give up.
Okay, you hear that, Randy? I told you the right answer. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Randy.
Dr. Gershwin, related to the Gershwin
Okay,
music.
to rectify for the word that I said before about getting other people's chusim and all of that. So the Rishonim say that the Gid Hanasha, it's associated with the time of Galus. That it's referring to all the suffering that the Jews have in Galus.
Yeah.
And then when the sun
Sciatic
comes out,
Spine.
everything gets healed. That's the sun comes out, it's referring to Mashiach. That's it.
So right now we're in the dark.
In this case,
Now, Gid Hanasha, the sciatic nerve that we're not allowed to eat, based on the story with Yaakov wrestles with the angel. Noyeg ba'aretz u'b'chutz la'aretz, it applies in the land of Israel, and it applies also outside the land of Israel. B'fnei Abayas, it applies when the temple is existing. V'shlei b'fnei Abayas, and unfortunately, if the temple is not existing, it also applies.
but it
B'chulin,
doesn't apply to Ben Pekua.
we're going to see that in a second. B'chulin,
I remember that.
B'chulin, it applies to mundane animals. B'makdashin, it applies to
Give her another
sanctified
cookie.
animals.
Give her
Karbanis.
another cookie.
Another cookie.
Now, Tosfos points out that all of these are really not necessary to say this is just the list that the Mishnah uses. It did it before. It uses this list for Kisei Adam when it applies, and it used it again here. All we need is one thing to be necessary, and then the whole list it's reasonable to say everything because that's the way we're doing this. You see, this is different. This applies also to an animal and to a wild animal. It applies to both the right thigh and the left thigh. This is a machlokes we're going to see soon. That according to one opinion, it only applies to one. But the first Tana, the Tanakama, holds that it applies to both. But it doesn't apply to a bird. Like kaf, because the bird doesn't have the kaf, which we call the kulis, which is probably the pelvic bone. What was the bone that we said is like a ball and socket? What's the in the animal? The femur goes into a
Acetabulum.
okay.
That's the
So that
cuff of the pelvis.
So that a bird doesn't have, even though it has something there, but it's flat. It's not considered a kaf. So it doesn't apply to a bird. V'noig b'shlil. You see this, Dr. Stein? It applies to a fetus. The Gemara later on is going to say it's talking about, it's the opinion of Rabbi, and it's talking about a full term. Where there was one opinion that says that it does apply if it's a full term. And Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Eina Noig B'Shlo. Rabbi Yehuda says no, even if it's full term, it doesn't apply to the fetus. In other words, you can eat the fetus entirely. V'chel bei mutter, and also the fat is permissible on the shlo. Eina tabachim ve'eina tabachim ne'amanim al gid anasha divrei Reb Meir. Reb Meir says that the butcher is not trusted to say that he removed the gid anasha because it's very, very difficult.
It's not the butcher. Oh yeah, shochti.
So the butcher.
It's very difficult to take out, and things that are so difficult to remove, you can't trust them.
You need a menachem.
Yeah.
No.
The Chachamim Maimrim, the sages say, "Ne'amanim alav v'ala chelav." The sages say that you are trusted, and you can trust them also that he removed the chelav as well, the forbidden fats. The Gemara asks, "Muktashim pshita." An animal gets sanctified. Usually after it's born, you sanctify the animal. Before you sanctified it, it had the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve, the gid anasha. So what were we expecting? You sanctify it and all of a sudden the prohibition is going to disappear? Mishum da'aktashe pakal yesur gidan gidminai, because you sanctified it, the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve is going to disappear. Maybe we can say an interesting answer. We can answer like this. You see, the rule of gid anasha is a very strange halacha, because really the gid has no flavor. It's a tendon. It's the nerve. So it really doesn't have a. It doesn't have a taste. Nevertheless, if you eat it, you see other parts of the animal that are like this. Let's say the skin or the bones, or if you eat them, there's no prohibition on it. That was the whole gelatin machlekes many years ago. They had a machlekes. If you make the bones edible, or you make an edible product out of the bones with like gelatin,
Jello.
does
Big machlekes.
does it become usher? Because the Torah never prohibited the inedible parts of the animal. It was never prohibited. The prohibition is the things that are edible. So the gid anasha was not really something that was edible, but nevertheless it's forbidden. So some say there's a machlekes. If you cook it with other things, will the flavor of the gid anasha go into the other meat? Cook it whole. So let's say like this. Maybe we can answer that yesh begidim b'nais tam, that there is a flavor to the gid. Okay. And the chiddush of the Tana, what's our Tana saying? V'asi isur mukdashin v'chayale isur gid. And then the prohibition of, we're going to have two prohibitions here. The chiddush is that if you eat the gid anasha, you get malchus for eating the gid anasha. And also, if it was hektish, you also eating part of hektish that you weren't allowed to eat. You also eating a part of hektish that you weren't allowed to eat. Now that would only apply if there's a flavor to it. So there's two things that we're learning here. First of all, that there is a flavor to it, and you had a benefit from it.
So that's the chiddush.
The chiddush is that not that there's a gid anasha, that it's prohibited as a gid anasha. The chiddush is that there's a prohibition of muktashim on it. So when we said noyeg b'muktashim, what we mean to say is not that it remains prohibited as a gid anasha. What we say is that the muktashim, the rule of hektish, will go on the gid anasha. That's what we mean to say. The Gemara asks, if that's the case, Hai muktashim noyeg begidmi ba'ilei. You should have said it the other way. You shouldn't have said that the gid hanasha applies to hektish. You should have said hektish applies to the gid. You said it backwards. We said noyeg b'muktashim. It applies to hektish. The gid hanasha applies to hektish. That we know already. What the way the Gemara is explaining it is that hektish applies to the gid. The Gemara says elakasava. Rather, we have to learn this differently. Ein begidin b'nais tam. Really, the gid has no flavor. U'muktashim isur gidika, isur muktashim leka. What we mean to say is that the gid hanasha applies to muktashim. We mean to say only the isur gid is on muktashim, but there's no prohibition of hektish because it has no flavor. Exactly the opposite. It's isur gid bilvad. Rashi says it's only the isur gid, only the prohibition of the sciatic nerve if you eat this out of an animal, out of a sanctified animal that you weren't supposed to be eating, you only get one prohibition. The Gemara says, "Savar tana didane in begidin nice and tam." The only way to say this is if you say there's no flavor to the gid. Our Tana holds there's no flavor to the gid. 1 second, look at a Mishnah further. It says, "V'hatanana" was taught in a Mishnah. Yerach shenis bashal b'gidanasha. If you cook the whole thigh with the gid in it, with the sciatic nerve, im yeshba b'nais and tam. If it's 1 in 60, that's the way we estimate that it would give flavor. 1 in 60 would be enough to give a flavor. If it was 1 in 60 that it would give a flavor, harisu asura. Why is it making it asur if there has no flavor?
Well, how can you even use 1 in 60 here? 1 in 60. First of all, normally 1 in 60
would
matter or something. The
right.
other thing is 1 in 60 only applies if the thing is dissolved and not individual.
Oh, so what we're saying is we're not going to eat the gid hanasha now. We're going to take the gid hanasha out after it's already cooked. But what about the rest of the meat? Can you eat the rest of the meat? So if the rest of the meat is over 60 times that the size of the gid, then the rest of the meat doesn't have the gid in it. It has the dissolved flavor of the gid in it, if the gid has flavor. So we're saying that the gid must have flavor if we're giving a measurement of flavor.
So that should be butter.
If there is no taste, then why are we giving a measurement of taste? If a flavor, eat the rest of the meat. There's no problem. And that's what we were saying, that the gid has no flavor. Because if you eat it when it's hektish, there's no problem. It's only a problem of the gid. Right? Ella, rather we need a new pshat. We're not talking about an animal that gets sanctified. Here we're talking about an animal that's inside. It's a vlad, it's a korban shlamim that gives birth. And the question is, which prohibition came first? The sanctity on it of a shlamim, that we weren't supposed to eat it yet until it was done properly, or the gid hanasha? Whichever one comes first, that's the one that's going to apply. Ukasavar, and we're going to hold, noyeg b'shlil, that it applies to the fetus. The gid hanasha applies to the fetus. Ukasavar vladis kadshim b'mei imanen kadashim. And we're going to say that the sanctity of a korban applies while it's still in utero. So that the chiddush is that both the gid, the prohibition of the sciatic nerve, and the prohibition of eating something that's sanctified, the sanctity of it applies before it's born, in utero, both at the same time. And therefore, you were going to have both prohibitions on it. The isagid v'ismakdashim b'hadi adadi kasi. They both come at the same time. If one of them would come first, for example, if the gid hanasha didn't apply in utero, but the kachim did, then after it was born, it was already sanctified. The prohibition isn't going to apply to it.
Why do we need another chiddush?
Oh, very good. The Gemara says, "Mi matzis mukmisla b'shlil," and how could you apply it to the shlil and say that that's what we're talking about? But midiktani seifa noyig b'shlil. Once we say that it applies to the fetus, b'chlal the reisha la b'shlil askinin. It must be that the reisha is not talking about the shlil. Why does it have to say it twice?
But then you can go into the machlokas with the ben pekua.
Right. The Gemara says, "Hachi kamer." This is what it means to say. We start off saying that it applies to the shlil, and then we go on to say that this actually, what we just said, is actually a machlekes. Does it apply to the shlil? Does it apply to the fetus?
So then why would it say the word v'noig b'shlil? Didn't have to say it if we already applied it when it says mukdashim. It taught us about the shlil. It's an extra word over there in the Mishnah.
Mukdashim.
If we learn from mukdashim about a shlil, so it doesn't have to say in the Mishnah the word v'noig b'shlil.
The way that Rashi writes it, it says, then it goes on to say, this that we said that it's noyeg b'shlil is lav divrei hakol, but it's really a machlekes. The Gemara says, Umi matzis amret de tavayo bahadi hadadi kasi. We've been saying that the gid hanasha is, the prohibition of the gid hanasha applies already in utero, and the sanctity of the animal, of the fetus, is also in utero. They both happen at the same time, and therefore it's simultaneous. Because of that, they can both be applied. You see, normally we would say that prohibitions are not stackable. Once it's prohibited, it doesn't become it doesn't become
You don't
prohibited
get an
again.
Easter on an Easter.
You can't have an Isser, ein Isser Chalal Isser. One prohibition doesn't go on another prohibition, unless there's exceptions, unless there's this Isser is greater or more severe, or incorporates more things into it. Isser Moisef, Isser Kailal, Isser Chamer.
I can manage if I get a nasha. If I have a business, with it, I could take them from.
It's no Isser Hana. It's not Isser Hana.
It's Mukdashim.
Oh, 1 second. If it's a hekdesh, then you have a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. What is it?
If it's that would depend if yesh begidim b'nais and tam. If you're really having enough from it,
Whatever Hana I have.
then it would be other issues.
If there was no nice and tam, there's
Oh,
no.
so we're saying that they both happen at the same time. The Isser Gid doesn't go up. Oh, you're saying on a regular animal it shouldn't apply to Makdashim if you hold Ein Begidim B'nais and Tam, because how does it become Aser? How does it become Aser?
If you eat it, it doesn't make a difference if it's not nice and tam. If you actually eat it, there's always an avera. If you eat it, regardless if it has nice and tam or not, if you eat it, you're either.
That's for sure.
What?
That's for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what he was asking. How could you have Isur and Mukdashim?
Versus Chullin.
I'm not sure if that's
Are
true.
you over Isur or not if you eat the hooves or you eat
I don't know.
the.
I don't think so. I
Oh,
don't think so. I
the
don't think it's
hekdesh?
edible. Only if you have some derech hana.
Does
It
it
would
mean
need to be a derech hana.
Very military. Very military. Not well.
I don't know. Okay, now the Gemara asks, how could you say that they both happen at the same time? By the way, I should point out that we were saying here that the Isser Gid, the Gid Anasha, applies in utero. That it does apply in utero. And then we said that it's a machlekes. If it applies. The Tosfos mentions that according to everyone, where's the machlekes if it applies in utero? Only if it's a full term. Before it's full term, everyone agrees that there's no Isser Gid. It's a very strong question on our Gemara, because that would mean that the hekdish comes first, because there's no Isser Gid until it's full term. Yes, it's in utero, but let's say, take the 8th month. Reb Meir would hold there's no Isser Gid, but it would still already be sanctified.
The 8th month can't live anyway.
So Tosfos says this, I'm sorry?
The 8th month is in Mischayemes.
I understand, but if you shech the animal, Reb Meir would agree that you can eat the ben pekua, the fetus inside.
With the goodness.
It's only if it's only if it's a full term that Reb Meir says that it's not. We're going according to Reb Meir as we're explaining this, but we're leaving out that detail where Reb Meir says that prior to it being full term, it's permitted. So Tosfos says, very strange answer. Tosfos says that really the Isser Gid is there even before. It's only the Shechita that removes it. And the Shechita removes it when it's not full term. It's the Shechita that's permitting it. But really it has the Gid,
So for
but there's this
example,
Gzeres HaKosav that the Shechita removes the prohibition.
so that means if you go ahead and eat an animal without shechita, and you eat the child that's in there,
So you would be violating the Gid Anashe and the
Also on the
Nevela. So
And
now the
also
question
on the
is,
inside.
that's another discussion. That's what the Gemara is going to discuss later. If we're going to have Isser Nevela, if Gid Anashe and Isser Nevela, if that's stackable, that the Gemara is going to discuss later.
Wait, it's nevela because it's had
No,
no
he's
shechita?
trying to say,
Why isn't it treif?
well, if you don't shecht
They said
it,
the Shechita makes
Oh, in a case that you didn't
Oh,
shech
so
it.
if you kill it but it wasn't shechita,
so then the Gid
no,
Even the
just for
shlil,
definition,
even
it's
the
considered
Nevela.
nevela.
Yeah.
That one.
The Gemara says, can you really say that both come at the same time, the Gid Anashe and the sanctity in the fetus, v'hatanan? But it was taught in the Mishnah. Aleilu tumas hanazir megaleach. On the following types of impurities, a Nazirite, who's not supposed to become impure, he has to shave his head and restart his Naziris because he became impure. So, alames, if he comes in contact with a corpse, val kazayis min ames, and if he comes in contact with a olive size of the flesh of the corpse. Bekashalon, we had a question on this. Al kazayis min ames megaleach. If he has to shave and restart, if he came in contact with an olive size, so al kulay like kolshkein, is it not a kal v'chaimer, and all the more so that if he comes in contact with a full corpse, why does it have to say both? If an olive size is enough to make him restart on the corpse. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan gave an answer to this. He said, "Lo netzrucha." It's only necessary to say those two scenarios. A fetus, a miscarriage, that was so small that there was no kazayas.
But it's still considered
a mace. So we said, if on a kazayas you have to restart the Naziris because he came. So for sure on a full body. He said, no, here we have a full body that's less than a kazayas. Because it's so small, but the expression was, shlei nikshurei varav begidin, that the limbs were not held together with the tendons. And here we're showing that it's considered a fetus, but the tendons weren't there yet. That means that the Gid Hanasha only is formed later. Now, we're talking about a human here, but take it over to an animal that's born from a shlamim, a carbon. So it's already considered sanctified at that early stage, but it doesn't have a Gid Hanasha yet. So the Gid Hanasha is only formed later. Alma Isser Mekdashim Kadem. We see that the Isser Hekdesh comes first. It's already sanctified. When it forms the Gid Hanasha, it was already sanctified. The Gemara says, Afagav the Isser Mekdashim Kadem, even though it's already sanctified before it forms the Gid, but Asi is a Gid and Chayil Alayo. Big Chiddush. The Gid Hanasha could, the prohibition of the Gid Hanasha could be imposed, superimposed on top of, once it's formed, on top of the Isser Hekdesh. Why? Shekeni Suri Nayag B'Bnei Nayach. Because this Gid Hanasha applies to B'nei Nayach. The commentators go wild here. What is he talking about? It applies to B'nei Nayach. So there's different ways of understanding this. Some explain that what it means is that it was told that it already applied when the B'nai Yaakov were considered B'nai Nayach. It applied before the Torah was given. Some say that it means that no, it actually applies to B'nai Nayach. It's a huge chiddush. You can't eat the Gid Hanasha. That would be a problem with all of those fancy meats that they have. So there's other interpretations here. That simply, not that it applied before, just simply where the Torah put it. That because the Torah put it in that location, that has some sort of chumrah that makes it considered a more serious sort of prohibition.
Oh, the 7 mitzvahs?
That's one interpretation, that it's like added on to
So
the
it's
next
8.
that it would be.
That would say 7
Well, there's
plus
a whole
1.
bunch of others that aren't accepted. Okay, let's stop over here. We'll continue with this.
To be continued in 3 weeks.
Well, what?
To be continued in 3 weeks.
When are you
Headed out. You're leaving tomorrow, no?